It was ugly. It was reminiscent of game one last year against Miami, but similar to last year, the Bucks found some way to win this game over the Chicago Bulls. 93-86, they take a 1-0 lead in the series, but there's plenty to talk about. Defense from both teams. The management of Giannis in foul trouble, I'm sure, is going to be a big topic here. Frank's shaking his head, so maybe let's just get straight into it.
You are Locked On Bucks, your daily Milwaukee Bucks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Bucks. I'm your host, Kane Pittman. You can see and hear me on this show Monday to Friday and after every playoff post-game. We should say now that we are in the playoffs as well. You can also find my work over at ESPN. And joining me from is the founder of brewhoop.com and longtime voice of the podcast, Frank Madden, for today's episode that is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. That's BetOnline, where the game starts. And of course, we thank you for making Locked On Bucks your first listen of every day. And if you're a Bucks fan, you're probably waking up happy, but also relieved. The Bucks win this game 93-86. There looked like it was going to be a blowout early in this game and ended up a battle down the stretch. And Frank, last time we spoke, at the end of last week, I said my one concern for this series is if you do get in a close game late, the Bulls have got shot makers. They didn't make shots down the stretch. This was two teams that really struggled to make
no
a shot
shots were
at
made.
all.
No shots
were made tonight. It was ugly. But sometimes, Frank, you have to win ugly, and the Bucks do win this one 93-86. And we spoke about last year how what happens if the Bucks don't get out of that game one, you find yourself in a dogfight of a series. Potentially could have been the same here. Of course, the Bulls will still like their chances of making it competitive, but in the end, the score doesn't really matter. Wipe the slate clean and hopefully move on. And this is as ugly as it gets.
Yeah, never trust the game one Bucks. That's
for damn sure.
That's the new version of the never trust the Bucks quote, which I officially retired on July 20th, 2021. Yeah, I mean, you kind of said it. Like, if this was our first rodeo in terms of Bucks playoff runs, I think I'd be angrier or more annoyed or more concerned. But as you said, like, this has been a recurring theme, which, I mean, that's a problem, right? Because if you're going to give yourself an 0-1 deficit, certainly when you play better teams, right? We saw that last year.
Yeah.
The Bucks going down 0-1 in the last 3 rounds they played. I mean, you just put so much pressure on yourself to be perfect or to be, really sharp the rest of the way out. But obviously against a Bulls team that, for as much as the Bucks struggled and shot poorly and turned it over a ton, right? 21 turnovers. I think that was really kind of the thing that jumped out to me was, I think the Bulls defense, I thought they had a really good game plan. And really got into the Bucks on the perimeter. Caruso was great tonight defensively. I thought, that was sort of like the Alex Caruso experience that Bulls fans, were talking about at midseason, and really got into Chris Middleton, the 2 former Texas A&M Aggies. And, Middleton was never really able to use that size consistently. He had a really tough shot on Zach LaVine early. And from there on out, a lot of this, I think the encouraging with Chris maybe is, he was only 3 of 6 on 2s. So he wasn't like 0 for 8 on 2s, but just 1 of 7 on 3s. And obviously you expect more of those shots to go in. If, 2 more of those go in, then, he's looking at a much better line. But, to me, I think the bigger concern is just the sloppiness of the turnovers. I thought the Bulls, again, just did a really nice job pressuring at the perimeter. And this is what we talked about in the podcast on Friday, right? That was sort of the tone setting that they did early in the season. Lonzo Ball, Alex Caruso, really getting into guys, blowing up actions, really making it hard to get into stuff offensively, and kind of being able to mask some of the limitations they have with Vooch and the rest of the team defensively. And I thought they just did a really nice job of that. And then they rotated well enough, right? A lot of early double teams on Giannis, and they managed to gum up the middle because a lot of those turnovers were just live ball, bounce passes, quick little flips into the middle that just got deflected and stolen away. So yeah, I mean, there will be, I don't love having a couple of days off here, Monday, Tuesday off before Wednesday. I feel like Bucks would probably be better off. They'll probably be chomping at the bit to play another game and sort of show that they're better than what they looked like here in game one. But Bud and his staff are going to have plenty to sort through in terms of film, things that they can do better, and certainly Chris and Drew in particular, obviously not the kind of performances that you expect from those guys, but Drew hit a couple big shots in the fourth quarter. Obviously the defense from him was really good. LaVine and DeRozan 12 for 44. I thought, Holiday and Matthews just did a really good job collectively of just, again, build the wall at the foul line, hands up. DeRozan 6 free throws. Okay, fine, right? And he said he wasn't going to go 6 for 25 again. And that may be true, although shades of Kyrie Irving, who said basically the exact same thing a few years ago when he then subsequently shot worse and worse in the rest of that series. So hopefully he pulls a Kyrie Irving. I don't expect him to, but 18 points on 25 shots. You can't defend DeRozan better than what we saw from the Bucks tonight. I don't think he got any layups. Brook Lopez was great. And, Giannis was pretty good. Didn't score a single point in the fourth quarter with the foul trouble. But to me, this was about, again, the Bucks showing that the defensive pedigree can be there. And I think this is the third straight game now that we've seen the Bucks defense look great against the Bulls. And obviously a lot of that's just because the Bulls continue to struggle from 3, 7 to 37. Bucks were 10 out of 38. So not a whole lot better. But you look at the scoreboard, that was really the difference. The fact that the Bucks were slightly less horrendous from 3-point range. And, at the end of the day, they just obviously were able to make some plays in the fourth quarter, and Brook Lopez, a couple big 3-point plays, and Drew Holiday, as we said, a couple big buckets. And again, just defensively, they did what they had to do.
Yeah, stick around because we are going to get to the Giannis stuff, because I think that honestly was one of the bigger conversations. And it's only one game, but I think if we keep it positive, I think right now, and you mentioned Brook Lopez, and I tweeted the same thing. I mean, a couple of blocks in the fourth quarter, those couple and ones where no one could make a shot at all, and Brook Lopez was just able to flip those shots up and in. But on the defensive side of the ball, you brought it up on Friday when you were talking about the 3-point rate of the Bulls. They aren't a big 3-point shooting team, which is interesting when you have a guy like Vucevic who has hurt the Bucks in the past. Was he going to be willing to shoot those above the break threes? Well, he got up 10. And that's a really, really high number for him, but he only hit 2 of those. And you saw right from the start that shot was going to be there for him. And even late in the game, there was a couple where I was holding my breath on it, but then Vucevic tended to want to get into the post and post guys up. And he did a decent job of that. But I still thought there was a couple of occasions where, and there's one that sticks with me in my mind, where Wes sort of helped off. Vucevic was in the post. And it's like, you know what? If Vucevic is really going to back down Brook Lopez or even Drew Holiday, who made his life really difficult on a couple of those post-ups, just let Vucevic go one-on-one and don't help off for some of those threes. The Bulls only shot 18%. So I think if you're a Bucks fan looking at it and saying, well, the Bucks didn't hit threes, well, Milwaukee kind of never hits threes in the playoffs. This is something we've gotten used to seeing. And the Bulls were 18% from 3, Frank. So there's still plenty of room for improvement, obviously, with the Bulls. The question will be, we know that the Bucks defense can withstand an entire series. Will the Bulls be able to bring up that level throughout the entire series? Because as you said, I thought Caruso was probably the barometer.
Yeah, I mean, again, I just think matchup wise, I like what the Bucks can do defensively against the Bulls. And, it's interesting because, this maybe transits into a little bit into the Giannis conversation with the foul trouble. First off, malpractice trying to go offense defense with Giannis in these last few minutes, right? I mean, we can debate whether Bud should have gone back to Giannis earlier in the fourth quarter after he picks up the 5th foul, which let's say as well. I mean, when we talk about in the playoffs, you can just play Giannis 42 minutes every night. Well, Giannis can't be picking up all these fouls. I mean, I think he had a career high in fouls this year. A lot of that was because he was playing center early in the season, but he's got to be smarter, right? You just can't pick up cheap fouls in particular. Some of these fouls may be kind of bang, bang, kind of, fouls we don't like. But at the end of the day, he's the first person responsible for keeping himself on the floor. And so, he couldn't have played 42 minutes tonight just because he was getting too many fouls, right? That said, the fact that he came back with was it 5 or 6 minutes left? Him and LaVine both had 5 fouls, which, obviously less of a factor for LaVine given how he plays. But the fact that they then took him out again after whatever it was, I don't know how, I'd have to double check how much time.
One possession. He had the assist to Drew Holiday and then got taken straight back out.
Yeah, and then they had the above 3 minute timeout, the use it or lose it, I think, that then let them get back in. And then, bafflingly, double check the play-by-play for me when he got taken out again. But it's just like, I mean, look, the Bucks have a luxury in this series because not only do you have Brook Lopez, but when you put Bobby Portis in there, first off, I think Bobby has done, he thought he did a nice job defensively tonight. He wasn't like a weak link that really got exploited badly or anything defensively. And the other thing is, it's like Pat Williams, he doesn't do anything, right? Like, he took 3 shots, had 5 points tonight. And if Bobby Portis is guarding Pat Williams, like, they're not going to run pick and roll with Pat Williams really, or, like they want to run it through Vucevic because of his passing and all that. So we'll be interested to see if maybe they do something differently next game to force, a Bobby into a play like that. But obviously you hope next game you won't have to run with Bobby in the last couple minutes of a close game because you'll have Giannis and Brook and you can keep both those guys out there. So, so it was interesting. I mean, again, credit to the other Bucks, including Bobby and Brook, because they made it academic. The Bucks were not hurt. They expanded the lead a little bit when Giannis was on the bench. But just total overcoaching to me, total getting way too cute with stuff. And, end of the day, Giannis was plus 19 in 34 minutes tonight. They win by 7. So, minus 12 in the 14 minutes he was off. And, it just felt like all game long, that was really all the Bucks had to do to regrow the lead was just put Giannis back in. He was the only guy that was really consistently kind of really hurting the Bulls. And instead, it was obviously a really disjointed fourth quarter. He didn't score a point. I don't know if maybe he took 1 shot in the fourth quarter. But obviously they really, kind of took him out. Basically it was one of those, the coach fouls out his own player type situations. And, again, my mindset generally with Giannis in foul trouble is, hey, especially now that you have the luxury of having some depth at the big spots, let the guy play. And if he can't, avoid a foul out, then, again, you're basically fouling him out again by yourself if you're not playing him inside of 2 minutes. So just trust the guy, right? He's a 2-time MVP. He's your best player. He plays both ways. And again, defensively, he loses something if he's trying not to foul. But at that point, like, just play with the reins off and whatever happens, happens.
Yeah, so he was in for 47 seconds. So he came in. There was that one offensive possession where they double or triple teamed him and he kicked it out to Drew Holiday. Drew Holiday hit the big 3. The Bulls called timeout. And when they came back, it wasn't even something I was looking for. And then I think Grant Hill mentioned, he goes, I don't really know why Giannis is off the floor. But anyway.
Yeah, he was like sitting like behind the bench almost. It was like, my first thought was like, is he injured? Like, is he injured? Like, what happened? Yeah.
It was a strange situation. I've got Bud's reaction here, so we'll see how he explained it after the game. Anyway, after I talk about Athletic Greens, our sponsor of the podcast, and we're talking about AG1, which is the product from Athletic Greens. And I started taking AG1 because I'm tired. I'm tired all the time. And sometimes in the morning, actually, Frank, I don't have time to be making a big breakfast. So all you can do is put a couple of scoops of AG1. And then you're helping out your health. You've got more energy. You're optimizing your immune system, and you're just feeling good about yourself. So there's a couple of things you need to know about AG1. It's lifestyle friendly, whether you eat keto, paleo, vegan, dairy, whatever your diet is. This works for all these. And me, I'm just a pretty normal dietary thing I've got going on here, Frank. But there's no GMOs, no nasty chemicals or artificial anything. And it still tastes good, which is hard to believe, but it supports better sleep quality, which for me, I'm a terrible sleeper, absolutely awful sleeper. So it helps me, and it costs you less than $3 a day, which is cheaper than the coffee I'm usually going out and buying anyway. So basically, it's good for you. You'll feel better. Get stuck into the AG1. Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/NBA network. Again, that's athleticgreens.com/NBA network to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. And I tell you what, if you're talking about health and food, Built Bar, the best tasting protein bar that's ever been made, Frank. It's a couple of scoops of AG1. Wash it down with a Built Bar, and I'm telling you, you will be unstoppable. The day you're going to have is going to be the best of your life, and then it'll be your routine. That's me saying that. That's not. There's no promises. No promises there. Let me just be clear. But Built Bar, covered in 100% real chocolate, low calorie, high protein. Replace your candy bars with these because they're just simply better. A typical candy bar can be anywhere from 200 to 300 calories. With a Built Bar, you're looking at 130. So half the calories, much better for you. And the flavors are excellent. Mint brownie, coconut almond, white chocolate cookies and cream. I believe that's still up there on the website, but they've always got different specials coming up there, Frank. So you can check it out at built.com. Just use the promo code LOCKED15 and get 15% off your order. Use promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at built.com. Got to be careful what I'm saying there, Frank. That's for me personally, I just want to say,
they can't sue you. You're in Australia. They'll never be able to make it stick. What are they going to sue you from the United States? Come on. Yeah.
Talking about my own experience, but speaking of own experiences, Budenholzer obviously had his own experience when it came to Giannis and his foul stuff. So the great man, Eric Name, asked him, obviously, it was a big talking point. And Bud said, we're up 3 with a free throw and just keep him in. I had both my timeouts. If they scored, we were probably going to call timeout. Just make sure he's there to finish the play, finish an offensive possession. Bobby Portis had some good defensive possessions, so just taking away the option of going at Giannis and avoiding his 6th foul to stay in the game. Of course, he can't pick up his 6th foul if he's not in the game, Frank. So that's a pretty astute observation right there. But then he goes on to say we've got a lot of confidence in Brook and Drew on the offensive end of the court. Defensively, a lot of the action was DeRozan, LaVine, and Vucevic, so they felt like they took a bit of a chance, but they had the confidence in those guys. The interesting part for me, and this is what I said to you before we started recording, Bud's ability to treat game ones like they are just a warm-up, just an open scrimmage with crowds to just ease your way into the series is hilarious. And he says the confidence to put Bobby back in, I think it's good for him to get those reps. You know, we got to do it together. So it was a good opportunity for us. And this is a game 1 where you got a Bulls team playing for their absolute life, and the Bucks were able to pull it out. He did have the timeouts, and I thought it was interesting. If you're not going to put Giannis on the defensive end, then okay. But I thought he was definitely going to call timeout and put him on the offensive end because, as you pointed to, he was creating everything. And the Bucks' number 1 play of the day was literally just throw the ball up in the air under the hoop. Giannis will jump up and get it and throw down a dunk. So I thought it was crazy not to go back to Giannis. But I think the only thing I'll say, when you've got old mate Tony Brothers in the game who was desperate, and I mean desperate to have an impact in the 4th quarter, then you do have some game awareness of what type of foul they're going to call. And with a guy like Tony Brothers, you do know that he could not give a shit if he fouls Giannis out of the game. And I thought the 4th foul, which was really the costly one, and this is kind of the interesting thing about having Giannis out of the game on the defensive possession, is that I think he had at least 3 offensive fouls, maybe 4 offensive fouls on the night. So don't know about the thinking there. I mean, you kind of trust Giannis on the defensive end, but maybe Bud was just aware of Tony, old Tony.
I mean, Vucevic had 2 chances with a minute left. Pick and roll. He gets ahead of steam going right down the middle. Kudos to Bobby Portis for challenging the initial kind of runner, but then Vooch got the rebound and Brook kind of mistimed his jumper, just couldn't get up quite quick enough. I mean, Vooch had a, bunny. Yeah. It was just right there and he misses it. And Brook gets the rebound. And, that was, essentially where, to me, kind of the last, kind of the death knell when the Bucks score on the other end. So, I mean, this is the way it is, right? It's a game of inches, and the Bucks, you wouldn't have guessed it from the offensive execution tonight, right? They just were absolutely stuck in mud. It felt like that Nets series where the Bucks just could not get out of their own way, just turning the ball over left and right, missing shots with the, your number 2 and 3 guys with Chris and Drew not being able to really live up to what we expect from them. Felt like that Nets series all over again for stretches there. But, the Bucks win another close game. They win another close playoff game. This is how they won a championship, right? I mean, as much as the Suns are the team that everybody looks at, understandably, as, kind of the clutch kings of the NBA, you beat them 3 times in clutch play to win an NBA championship. You obviously had to win a number of clutch games against the Nets, the Hawks, and at least one clutch game against the Miami Heat in the first round and that game won. So, I give the Bucks a little bit of credit, but certainly this was a game that you survived more than a game that they really, kind of took control. And, again, I think you have to give credit to both teams defensively. And I think the Bulls, to me, that's what the Bulls, again, they'll defensively, they're going to feel great about the way things worked. And I think now the question is, what do the Bucks come back with for an answer? And I'm curious to see it. I think more Giannis in the middle of the floor where he's got more passing options when they bring those extra bodies is one. And we saw them go to that, kind of 3-man action that they love to go down the stretch with. Felt like maybe a little earlier than they might otherwise would, just given the way that Chicago was doubling. But if they double Giannis, I mean, he was the most doubled player in the NBA this year. I think 35% of his possessions he was doubled. So that's nothing new, right? And he scores 27 points tonight, even with all the double teaming. So Giannis is used to that kind of thing. But now it's just a matter of making sure those other guys cash in. And obviously, a big part of that is 3-point shooting. And some of the supporting cast tonight obviously was pretty anonymous, right? Pretty much a typical rotation, right? I mean, this is the 9 guys. Javon Carter playing instead of George Hill, who was out with the abdominal injury. But Bobby Portis 23 minutes, Connaughton 18, Grayson Allen 18. But Connaughton 1 out of 6 from 3 points on 7 shots. Grayson Allen totally anonymous. Not like the guy that we saw against the Bulls the last couple games where he really,
the worst pass of the night, Frank.
And the worst pass of the night. That pass in transition that just overshot everybody was just terrible. But yeah, Grayson Allen was a complete 0 tonight, and it's one game, you won it, and I think I was thinking this earlier when I was watching the Nets and Celtics game. If you're the Nets, you're winning until the last, the buzzer basically on that Tatum lay-in, and man, like especially if you're playing, if you're the road team and you don't have home court, you get a chance to beat a team on the road and you can't pay it off. Like that just is a killer. And we'll see obviously with that Nets series. I mean, they have Kevin Durant, they have Kyrie, they'll talk about killers, right? But I think if you're the Bulls, I tweeted it before the game. My only tweet pregame was, the stat about the Bucks last year, losing 3 out of 4. And obviously the only game 1 win they had was also ugly and extremely close with Miami. This was the game for them to take, right? And again, it's not to say that the Bucks are going to just roll and have an easy time of it in game 2. But if you told me which game do I feel more confident in, I definitely would have said, even coming into this one, not knowing the result, I would have said, well, I feel better about game 2 than game 1 just because of the history of this team. So, feels like a big missed opportunity for the Bulls. And as we saw in that Heat series last year, sometimes you fail to take advantage of that. And then, a team like the Bucks with the talent they have, they just start to get rolling. And next thing you know, it's 4-0. So we'll see. I mean, still a lot of work to do, but at the end of the day, we know, last playoffs, it takes a long ass time to get through an entire playoffs and win a championship. So part of me is just like, hey, you know what? You're just counting down those 16 wins you have to get. And game 1, you marked it down to 15. That's the main thing.
Yeah, when I saw people talking about 15 wins to go, I thought, goodness, this is potentially a long road ahead. I've got to take care of this voice over the next 2 months of podcasting, Frank. That might be the key thing. But you mentioned game 1s. If you are someone that's into betting, then you should go to betonline.net. And if the Bucks are able to get through this series, little advice for you, whether it's the Celtics or the Nets, you might want to check the odds for that other team in game 1 because the Bucks aren't winning it. I'm here to tell you the Bucks are not winning game 1 in the second round if they advance. And you can get all the odds for this series as well and futures, all those types of things. Finals MVP. I think Giannis is still second favorite for Finals MVP behind Devin Booker. I think the Suns are doing a number on the Pelicans right now as we record this. But betonline.net is your number 1 source for all your betting stats and sports info. You can find all the latest sports developments. And it's not just basketball, baseball, obviously, as well. Check out what's going on with the Brewers. Just head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. That's BetOnline, where the game starts. You mentioned, Wes, off the top, he's been a talking point for a while. We've certainly discussed, and I've been heavily in favor of putting him in the starting lineup, and I think we saw the exact reason tonight when I was watching the way that he was defending and really just completely selling out to just harassing DeMar DeRozan, and I was thinking to myself, you can't ask Chris Middleton to do that. That is not a role that is going to go well for him, and it's exactly why he's out on the floor. And then if it's someone like Grayson Allen, well, he's not going to be too worried about it. So this tonight was a perfect example. If you just spent possessions just watching the way Wesley Matthews was trying to even deny DeMar DeRozan the ball. Now, he played 26 minutes. Perhaps the most impressive stat is the fact that he only had 2 fouls, Frank. And you mentioned that DeRozan only went to the free throw line 6 times. A couple of times, I honestly thought DeRozan just fell over, and they were like, okay, well, let's blow the whistle. It didn't look like there was a lot of contact there, but he's a physical defender. He's got the size, and again, I think his willingness to just try and deny the ball at the start of a possession was as big as anything. And then we saw, obviously, Drew Holiday spend some time there as well. But is that what you expected? Drew Holiday on Zach LaVine, Wesley Matthews on DeMar DeRozan, which is how they started this one out.
Yeah, that's what we talked about on Friday. And it's kind of funny to me, like, I've heard Bill Simmons talk about the Bucks. I've heard Zach Lowe, obviously, who knows more about basketball than I'll ever know. I won't necessarily say same about Bill in terms of his knowledge of the Bucks, but
Bill will be very disappointed. I know he'll be listening to this podcast. Shout out to you, William.
Bill's great at podcasting.
Yeah, no doubt.
I don't think he claims to know everything about basketball, but it's kind of fun. I think even Zach just straight up didn't talk about Wes when they were talking about guarding the Bulls' wings, and Wes, just nobody talks about it. People just don't talk about him, even though he's been starting now for a few weeks. And I get it. Even us kind of Bucks people who like Wes, we're always a little bit anxious about trying to act like, oh, he's the PJ Tucker replacement, and oh, we're good. We got our role playing starter. It's all fine. I think we're all a little anxious to see how he holds up over what will hopefully be a long playoff run. We're all anxious to see offensively, tonight 2 out of 3 from 3, 6 points, +9, take it. Every game you'll take, just hit a couple open threes. Second one actually came at kind of an important point where the Bucks were really starting to struggle offensively at a corner 3. So yeah, he did the job tonight. And again, kind of like last game when DeRozan had 40, I said, look, West, for the most part, did his job, put his hands up, was strong against him. I don't think he fouled him much tonight. Again, only 6 free throws for DeRozan, 6 out of 25. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that Wes is the DeRozan stopper or something like that. I still think, Drew is a better option just because he's better laterally. But I think, again, just stylistically, because DeMar is not really trying to get to the rim typically anyway, that West tends to be a pretty good matchup. And again, it's just about eating innings and, giving Chris Middleton a chance to not have to always defend an all-star caliber player. Although Chris defended LaVine a fair bit tonight, and I thought he did fine. You look at LaVine's numbers, obviously, 6 out of 19 from the field, 18 points. You'll take that every game too. So yeah, I think credit to Wes. Wes and Bobby, the only 2 Bucks that hit more than 1 3-pointer tonight on the night when the team went 10 for 38. So, nice shift from Wes tonight. 27 minutes, probably feels about right. And he was obviously part of that closing group. And again, people are going to not talk about him as, being in that closing combination, but, these games keep happening, and we keep seeing him obviously be in that group that Bud trusts. And so far, he's obviously, for the most part, continued to earn that trust.
Yeah, tough night for Pat, 1 for 6 from 3 when you talk about those role players. And I thought some of those looks were pretty good as well. And it's probably why when you look at the way that the Bulls were defending Giannis and the double and the triple teams, and then you say, well, he only had 3 assists, it's because the Bucks couldn't hit an open 3. So hopefully that changes moving on in the series. Make sure you check out the Locked On NBA podcast. They'll be wrapping up everything from the weekend, from tonight's games as well. Obviously, Miami handled the Hawks in game 1 there as well. So a bit going on around the league. Check out the Locked On NBA podcast. And, to me, as we wrap up this, with 2 nights off, which, as you pointed to, is a little annoying. I kind of just want to get this series rolling now. I wish it was every other day. But George Hill probably is going to be available for game 2. He was pretty close for this one. He was looking very sharp, very sharp. I think it was like I think it was a salmon suit, I think we would call it. But he had like a white T-shirt underneath, white shoes. The glasses was an excellent look. So I thought George Hill was looking great on the sidelines today. There's no doubt about that.
Was it a dark? Was it really salmon? I thought I saw him at one point, but I thought it was like darker. But I'll leave it to you, King. You clearly had your eye on him.
I did. There's no doubt, and I didn't. I wouldn't say I'm great with colors, so someone will be able to let us know what was going on there. And but if the Bulls want to prove that they're into this series, Frank, and they're really locked in, then I think they should spend the next 2 nights at the Fister. That'll prove some toughness. I would not stay at the Fister Hotel, by the way. I got no problem in saying that I would be too scared to stay there.
Yeah, it's interesting because whenever I've been in Milwaukee, I've lived there and stayed with my parents when I visit. So the idea of needing to stay in a hotel in Milwaukee has just never been a factor. So I've never had the option. So I don't know. I've been inside the Fister lobby. I think I had lunch there at some point, but yeah, never stayed there. And I guess you're not going to be getting like like next time you go to Milwaukee, I guess you're not going to be renting out like a presidential suite at the Fister for fear of running into some presidential ghosts or whatever ghost stories tend to run in the Fister, right?
Frank, I tell you what, this was going back a few years ago when I was in Milwaukee, I went on a date and it was at the bar at the Fister, which, but whatever. And I think it is haunted because I sat down, and when I went to sit down at this table, a full glass of water spilt on my pants, and I was wearing like light colored pants. So I just met this person, but the first thing I had to say to her is, look, even if this isn't going well, we have to stay here for at least an hour because I cannot stand up. So that was anyway. We didn't hang out again after it, but that's how it went down. And
so you're blaming the Fister ghost for your lack of game, is what I'm hearing.
No. The Fister ghost obviously wanted to teach me a lesson because I knew I was scared, and it knocked the glass of water onto me. Anyway, that's a completely irrelevant story, and I'm just letting everyone in on that one there. By the way, the Fister Hotel, for people not from Milwaukee, is said to be haunted. There's plenty of stories. So anyway, that's where I'm going with there.
By the way, I had no idea about any of this growing up in Wisconsin and Milwaukee area. I honestly, I think I only heard about this in the context of NBA hotels and stories like this. Because I think also Oklahoma City, I want to say, there's like rumors about, I think Oklahoma City, like one of the hotels there has, like players have been afraid of being haunted by stuff. I don't know.
Well, I think it's a big baseball thing because like if they have to stay in Milwaukee for 5 days, there's players that are just like, I am not staying there for 5 days. like that is not happening, which I totally understand. So anyway, one other question for you.
I was going to say one thing, just one other kind of like number that jumped out. 16 offensive rebounds for the Bulls tonight. I think one of the things we talked about in the 2 Brook Lopez games. I think the Bucks had, I don't know if they had a 90% defensive rebound rate in both of those games, but they did very well on the defensive glass in those games, kind of like continuing with that theme of the Bucks size really kind of weighing in and being a huge presence. 16 offensive rebounds. However, the Bulls missed so many shots. That 16 offensive rebounds is actually only a 25% offensive rebound rate, which is, better than what teams typically have against the Bucks. They're typically in the low 20s. But, not disastrous, but I would say not where the Bucks would want to be against the Bulls in particular. I think they would look at the Bulls and say, hey, we got to do a better job on the defensive glass. So something to watch out for, just in terms of one more thing that the coaching staff for the Bucks can focus on and maybe harp on a little bit in these couple days off. Something for the Bucks to clean up in game 2.
So I was going to have a look. I think it's gone. Our friend Mitchell Maurer sent us a tweet. I think it was from Brandon Jennings. Was it? Was it not from Brandon Jennings about?
Yeah, complaining or pointing out that basically the Bulls stink ever since they picked up Tristan Thompson, I think.
Yeah, I think that's gone, unless it was an old tweet. But anyway, either way, I think it resurfaced tonight. Tristan Thompson played a few minutes tonight. I wouldn't say it was an influential stint on the court for him. One last question as we wrap this up, Frank. What is your favorite stock to exchange?
I don't know. By the way, if people don't know, we're talking about Sandro Mamukelashvili asked Jordan Nwora that question. I guess when they were not entirely clear why, but when they were in New York a couple weeks back, the Bucks, a number of the Bucks went with Bucks. I forget who from the Bucks ownership group. If it was Mark Lasry or who it was, but they rang the bell at the New York Stock Exchange. And there was some video from the crack staff, the Bucks video team, of of Mamu asking Jordan what his favorite stock to exchange. I was expecting Jordan to have some snappy comeback and that would be the joke, and I was kind of like let down that Jordan didn't even really give an answer. So I don't know. We still don't know the answer of what Jordan Nwora's favorite stock to exchange is, but I'm an index fund guy, Kane. I don't have any illusions that I can beat the market in my spare time. So I'm a big index fund guy. So yeah, I don't have a good answer for my favorite stocks to exchange either.
Well, the main point is shout out to Mamu, who I think is great for content. Last year we had Mamadi Diakite, who was providing some gold on the social media, and now we've got Mamu, who, by the way, can't play in the playoffs as a two-way player. But geez, he's just going to sit on the bench and he is going to have a great time. He looked like he was having fun tonight. So shout out to Mamu. We like him and we enjoy the content. Speaking of content, Locked On Bucks will be back tomorrow. We'll be back every day this week as we lead up to Game 2. Obviously, a little bit of a break here, which would have been a pretty annoying break if the Bucks weren't able to squeak out this win tonight. But now you get to sit on 1-0. Hopefully, they'll have a better performance in Game 2 and go back to Chicago with a 2-0 lead, Frank. But they win at 93-86, so we're happy about that. We'll be back tomorrow. We'll leave it there for Frank and myself. Catch you guys then.